A very good morning to all present in the webinar on multi-organ inflammatory syndrome. I, Nidhi Sharma, take this opportunity to welcome you all in Prem Institute of Medical Sciences, Baroli, Panipat. So next slide, please, Paul sir. Today's topic is multi-organ inflammatory syndrome in children. First of all, I would like to welcome the dignitaries. The next Also, next slide, please. I would like to welcome our chairman, Dr. Pankaj Mutneja ji, Prem Institute of Medical Sciences, Baroli, Panipat. And sir is also the chairman of Dr. Prem Multi-Speciality Hospital, Panipat. Welcome you, sir. Next, please. I extend my hearty welcome to Brigadier J.R. Sethi, retired VSM. Sir is working as Chief Executive Officer, Director at Prem Institute of Medical Sciences, Panipat. Sir has served Indian Army for 32 years and he has been a chairman of SSB Armed Forces and provided various training for NDA and IMA. And he also runs a school at Panipat. Next, please. I would like a hearty welcome to our source of motivation to Professor Mrs. Inderpreet Kaur, Director Principal, Ved Nursing College, Ved Nursing Training Institute, Baroli, Panipat. I welcome you, ma'am. Next, please. I would like to welcome the chief guest of today's session, Ms. Suman. Suman has done BSc Nursing from PGIMS Rohtak and MSc Nursing in Pediatric Nursing Specialty from AIIMS, New Delhi. Next, please. Presently, Suman is working as nursing faculty, College of Nursing, AIIMS, New Delhi. She has been nursing officer in the Department of Pediatric and Neonatal Intensive Care Unit from December 2010 to October 2019. So Suman Madam will be the speaker of today's webinar on the topic multi-organ inflammatory syndrome in the children. I would also like to welcome all the participants in the today's session.
I, Brigadier J.R. Sethi from Prem Nursing College, request Mrs. Suman to be our chief guest and educate our children, since she is an expert on multi-organ inflammatory system syndrome in children. I find that she, with her wonderful qualifications, is one person who can help this institute turn out excellent children in nursing profession. Dr. Pankaj Mutneja is the chairman and he is a worthy son of Dr. Prem Kumar, who was a civil surgeon and thought of an idea of educating the rural children of Haryana. He is the founder, and like all children are, Dr. Pankaj Mutneja has taken his dreams to sky high and started GNM, MSc, even MPCC courses here in this institute. This is the only institute where we stress more on practical than on theory. This is the only institute in Haryana which is backed by a NABH hospital. This is the only institute which has got excellent teachers headed by Principal Professor Inderpreet Kaur, and facilitated by Mrs. Nidhi Sharma, who is the Vice Principal. Our only aim is that the children from this institute should be academically excellent and they should be totally devoted to their job and follow the footprints of the founder of the nursing profession, whose only aim was to look after the sick and the wounded. And that is why she was known as Lady with the Lamp. We take all these nurses take oath, and I wish and pray that they follow the footsteps of the person whose oath they take. Our aim here is only one, and that aim is that the children should be professionally sound, should know their job, and should devote and dedicate their lives to the welfare of the general public. I am sure with excellent leadership of Mrs. Inderpreet Kaur and spirits of Mrs. Suman, who is BSc, MSc Nursing Pediatric and is working as faculty in the AIMS, New Delhi, will help the children of this institute perform better. Thank you.
I would like to invite Professor Inderpreet Kaur Ma'am, Director Principal, Prem Institute of Medical Sciences, to address all the nursing students and the chief guest of today's session. Over to you, ma'am. I would like to invite Professor Mrs. Inderpreet Kaur Ma'am, Director Principal, Ved Nursing College, Ved Nursing Training Institute, to address all the students and chief guest of today's session. Over to you, ma'am.
Hello everyone. Good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. I welcome you all to the webinar.
Ma'am.
It is being organized by Pediatrics Department. I really appreciate the hard efforts of the facilitator, Ms. Nidhi Sharma, who has arranged for today's webinar. I would like to welcome our speaker for the day, and I hope she has joined us. And we welcome all the participants and the speaker of the day to today's webinar. And I hope this is going to be a good learning session for all of the participants. And surely, we would be learning a lot today on multi-organ inflammatory syndrome in children. Over to Nidhi ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to invite Ms. Suman, chief guest of today's session. Suman, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Thank you, Nidhi. Thank you, Nidhi, for the introduction.
You are welcome, ma'am. And I hope this session will be a great learning experience for all the nursing students. Thank you. And over to you, Suman, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much. So first of all, thank you for the chief patron that is Dr. Pankaj Mutneja, and Patron Sir Brigadier J.R. Sethi Sir, and Director and Principal Professor Inderpreet Kaur Ma'am, and Miss Nidhi Sharma Ma'am for inviting me as a speaker on the topic multi-organ inflammatory syndrome. Thank you so much for the invitation. And now I will share my slides. So please make me a co-host so that I can share the content.
Also,
Already done. Already done.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. Okay, thank you so much. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So today we will discuss about multi-organ inflammatory syndrome in children. So this is the emerging concern. I mean, means among the in the COVID-19 era. So as the second wave passes, there was a many more cases of multi-inflammatory syndrome in children. So till now, the children's pediatric population is less affected, but as we are expecting that the third wave can be there in at any time, so there are chances that this pediatric population will hit badly, and so we should mentally prepare, and we should prepare ourselves uh, for the emerging situation. So this MIS-MIS-C is the topic of the immediate concern that can happen. So what is MIS-C? MISCE. So this is also known as MIS-C. Okay. So today we will discuss about MIS-C introduction, then case definition, epidemiology, and then pathogenesis, clinical features and management, then nursing management, and summary of the topic. So in the case study, if we see in the pediatric ICU, if girl was admitted that was of 12 year of age, and she has fever, means she was admitted in the pediatric casualty. She was 12-year female. Earlier she has a history of epilepsy, but for this time she was admitted for fever, and she has a joint pain. Okay. Joint pain and fever has also there in last 7 days. Pain abdomen was also there, and more importantly she was complaining of the joint pain, and vomiting was also there since last 2 days. So she came here, she came in the casualty. After that she was admitted because she has fever and joint pain was also there. So screens were also sent, and she was admitted in the ICU. So the differential diagnosis were made like uh, she can have a rheumatic fever, rheumatic arthritis, dengue fever, sepsis, and MIS-C. So the immediate management was what was done. Fluid resuscitation was given, and later on she went into the shock, and for that inotropic support was given, and when she was on the inotropes, uh, oxygen saturation will also come down, and she was put on the S3-FNC or NIMV mode of ventilation, and then antibiotics were started. And she has a hyponatremia. In the lab investigation, she has hyponatremia, low albumin, and lymphopenia, thrombocytopenia, and CRP was also raised, and procalcitonin level was also raised. In the investigation, dengue was negative, malaria smear was also negative, blood culture was tried, and SARS-CoV PCR was negative, but in the serology, the antibodies were detected. Okay. So what are the other names of MIS-C? As this is the very current topic, so there are different names are given because COVID-19 is also new to this world. So so for this MIS-C. So MIS-C is also known for other names like pediatric inflammatory multi-system syndrome, temporarily associated with SARS-CoV-2, that is PIMS-TS. Then it also have a symptoms of Kawasaki-like disease. So also known as Kawasaki-like syndrome, KLS. atypical Kawasaki disease or incomplete Kawasaki disease. In Kawasaki disease, what happened to the patient? There is a gross protein deficiency, and patient have edema, hypoalbuminemia, and puffiness around the eyes. Growth retardation is there. So Kawasaki like disease symptoms are there in the patient with MISC. So person means specialist also call this as a Kawasaki like disease, every Kawasaki like syndrome. So ARS COVID-19 to induced Kawasaki like disease या फिर hyperinflammatory syndrome. ठीक है? Acute, it is known as SCI-KH and Kawa COVID-19 disease. So all these are the names of MISC, MISI. So earlier these names were used, but nowadays MISI is used universally. So if you see, most of the cases were there was an alert in UK as the COVID-19 began. So after the waves, after the first wave, okay, many cases in the pediatric population was reported, like for the hyperinflammatory syndrome, those who have symptoms of shock. So it was seen that these cases emerged at a very high speed. So first PMS alert was seen in the UK. Okay. So what is MIS-C? If there is infection there is infection of SARS-CoV-19 in the children's or any family member, if the child got infected, maybe the child will not show the symptoms of COVID-19, but he may be infected. So the child will have a fever, the inflammatory markers will increase, and it will affect the multi system, like it will also affect the renal system, uh, cardio system, cardiovascular system, then our liver, lungs. So all the organs will be highly affected, and it will affect the physiological parameters of the baby. So and other causes of these conditions are excluded. No other cause is finding for this clinical condition, then we will call it as MIS-C. So according to WHO, according to WHO, when we call it is a MIS-C, so if the child has a child or adolescent up to 0 to 19 year of age, he has fever more than 3 days, and if there are two conditions among these 5 conditions, if child develop any 2 conditions, then we will call it as MIS-C. Like if child has a rashes or bilateral non-purulent conjunctivitis or mucocutaneous inflammatory sign like oral, in the stomatitis is there, or any rashes on the hands or feet are there, if child has a hypotension or shock, or myocardial dysfunction, pericarditis, valvulitis, or coronary abnormalities, and this troponin level also increased. Troponin T and BNP markers are increased, or the evidence of coagulopathy like PT, AP symptoms, diarrhea, vomiting, or abdominal pain. If any out of these 5 symptoms, if any 2 are present and child has fever more than 3 days, then we will call it as MIS-C. Okay. So what will be the inflammatory markers? ESR, C-reactive protein, or procalcitonin will increase. And how the evidence of COVID-19, like in this RT-PCR, it can show negative. RT-PCR report can be negative, or antigen or serological positive. Means in the serology positive means the patient was found to have positive antibodies for the SARS-CoV-19. Okay, or any contact with the COVID-19 case. So there will be evidence of COVID-19 in the patient. Understand? RT-PCR can be negative because the patient has recovered. But in the serological findings, the patient will be found positive. Means there was exposure in the past for the virus, and it has developed antibodies against the virus. Or no other microbial cause for the inflammation, like no sepsis or staphylococcal or streptococcal uh, infection are there. If these other markers are not there, others infection are not there, but the child is showing the markers of inflammation and other symptoms are also showing, then we will call it as this MIS-C. Understand? In the epidemiology, most of the cases after the COVID-19, they will resolve automatically. So very few cases, like 2 in 1 lakh population, will go into the condition of MIS-C. Understand? And it is more in male child as compared to the female. Or means in many studies it is found that up to 60% of the patient, those who develop MIS-C, were male. Okay. And in the Western countries, it was found that it was more prominent in Black and Hispanic children. And there is a temporal association with the SARS-CoV-2 infection. Like if there is a peak of SARS-CoV cases now, then after 9 to 14 days, there can be a peak of MIS-C, multi-organ inflammatory syndrome. So now we can see there is a temporal association. Like first blue one is showing the peak of COVID-19, and next that red that is emerging is showing the peak of MIS-C. So we can see the peak will emerge after 9 to 14 days of the COVID-19 peak. So if in the future, if COVID-19 third wave outbreak will happen, then we must be prepared for the MIS-C cases, outbreak of the MIS-C cases. Understand? And the MIS-C cases the outbreak will be after 9 to 14 days of the peak of this COVID-19. So in the pathogenesis, what we will see, since there is an infection of SARS-CoV-19, COVID-2 symptoms, then in the first stage there will be child will be asymptomatic, or the child will have mild symptoms like rhinitis or fever. These symptoms will be there. And in the second stage, the patient will have naropharyngeal colonization of the mild infection. Like there will be colonization of the SARS-CoV-19 viruses, and it will also affect the lungs. And in the third stage, when I hope you know the various inflammatory process, what happened, like it will activate the mast cell, and the mast cell will produce cytokines and various inflammatory markers, uh, which will start the process of inflammation. After this, the capillary permeability of the capillary permeability increases, and at the site of inflammation, there is a shift of neutrophils, eosinophils, and all the lymphocytes. So after this, if there is a capillary permeability will be increased, then vasodilation will be there, and it will lead to shock-like condition or pulmonary shock-like condition. Means all the organs will be affected. So what can be the predisposing factor? Like the children who are on the immunocompromised or immunosuppressant drug, or the genetic predisposition is also found to cause MIS-C. Understand? So this is the hyperimmune. Means it doesn't happen in each and every child, those who are infected with the SARS-CoV-19, but in some cases they can be hyperimmune, and it can be due to any genetic predisposition, the defense mechanism of the children, and defense mechanism, or the if the child is on any chemotherapeutic drugs or on the immunosuppressant drug, then there are most likely chances then the child will go into the hyperinflammatory phase. Okay, so in this, all various organs will be affected, like skin changes will be there, and this petechial signs, petechia on the arms, faces, face will be there. Acute kidney injury can also happen, or in the abdomen, uh, abdominal tenderness or abdominal the intestinal bleed can happen, and patient can go in the shock, or in the ventricle it can lead to cardiomyopathy like ventricular dysfunction, or coronary aneurysm can happen, and in the lungs pulmonary edema or consolidated atelectasis can happen. Understand? Then meningeal irritation, like patient will have increased ICP. So many organs can be affected due to this condition, due to MIS-C. So what will be the clinical feature? In the clinical feature, fever, myalgia, patient will complain of pain. In the patient which was admitted in AIMS was uh, complaining of the joint pain, and she also developed puffiness around the face, and this breathlessness was also there in that patient. So various investigations were done. Nothing significant came, but when the inflammatory marker were done, then there was a gross inflammation in the child. Okay, so the diagnosis of MIS-C was made, and it was child was treated based on the MIS-C diagnosis. Okay, so patient can have conjunctivitis, rashes, lymphadenopathy, stomatitis, extremely swelling with erythema, or skin peeling can be there. And in the neurological system, patient can have meningitis, या फिर lethargy, headache, increased ICP can be there. And in gastrointestinal system, it will be affected, then patient will have nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, diarrhea, and this liver function test will also be affected. And most of the cases it affect the myocardial muscles. So in the myocardial, like myocarditis will be there, increase in the level of troponin or pro-BNP, coronary aneurysm. So there will be abnormal dilatation of the coronary arteries, coronary vessels. So it can also rupture, and patient can go in shock, and this patient can go in hypotension or hyperperfusion, and then it can lead to tachycardia. So it can be very life threatening condition. Okay, it is, if it is not uh, attempted, if it is not maintained or managed appropriately, then it can be life threatening for the patient. And in the lungs, if the lungs are affected, then hypoxemia, pulmonary infiltrates, and chest pain can be there. In the laboratory investigation, thrombocytopenia, neutrophilia, and lymphopenia, this type of condition will be there. And it can also lead to acute renal failure, like uh, creatine phosphokinase value will also increase, and serum urea, serum creatinine, all these conditions, all these parameters can also alter. So I think till now you can understand. So in the child, high ESR, CRP, ferritin, IL-6, IL-1, these are the inflammatory marker. In this, through this we can see that whether inflammation is there in the patient or not. Then procalcitonin is the first sign for the infection. Like if any infection is there, then first marker will be the procalcitonin. Like if procalcitonin is increased, then we can identify at the earliest stage that patient will develop infection. Okay, then other markers of the infection are CRP will be raised, ESR will also be raised. Then what are the investigation that need to be done? So there are different investigation. First is these are the general investigation that are to be done for the patient that are admitted. Okay, like blood count, including differential count, CRP, ESR will be done. RFT, LFT, SARS-CoV-19, like RT-PCR, we will send for the PCR as well as for the serology. In the serology, we will come to know about uh, that antibodies are present in the patient or not. Then blood culture, and if the condition of the patient will deteriorate, like uh, condition will deteriorate, or a patient will develop shock or other conditions like CRP is more than 5 mg per deciliter, ESR is also more, and lymphopenia, thrombocytopenia, hypernatremia, or neutrophilia or hypoalbuminemia is there, then we will go into the second tier of investigation, that is blood gas and lactate, procalcitonin, ferritin. These are IL-6 and IL-10. These are the interleukin 6, identify which will identify the inflammation in the patient. Then prothrombin time, APTT, D-dimer, fibrinogen, and chest X-ray, ECG, and echo will be done for the patient. Understand? So what will be the treatment for the patient? In the treatment, the condition are, we will differentiate in two groups like mild and moderate. In the mild and moderate condition, like in the mild condition, if no vasoactive requirement, like inotropes are not required, didn't go into the show, or inotropes are not required, minimal respiratory support is required, and minimal sign of organ injury are there, then these patient will come into the mild stage. And in moderate to severe condition, like patient will have developed shock, and there is a significant oxygen requirement, like patient is requiring oxygen on S3FNC. What is S3FNC? This is heated humidified high flow nasal cannula oxygen. Understand? Non-invasive ventilation or mechanical ventilation, and other organ dysfunction, like urine output is decreased, or patient is complaining of headache, ICP is increased. So in those cases, we will diagnose it as moderate or severe condition. Understand? So in the treatment, we will see this is the common treatment that is given for the patient, like antibiotic will be started, aspirin, uh, like 3 to 5 mg per kg per day is given, and most important is IVIG, 2 gram per kg over 12 to 24 hour, and maximum dose is 100 gram. And GI prophylaxis like proton pump inhibitors, pentoside medication will be given to prevent the GI bleed or like gastric inflammation. Understand? So this is the common treatment, and in the mild cases, methylprednisolone is started like at a lower dose, that is 2 mg per kg per day. Maximum 60 mg per day can be given, and after this steroid will be tapered over a period of 2 to 3 weeks. So over a period of 2 to 3 weeks, these will be tapered, and we can, as the condition of the child will improve, uh, we can taper the steroids, and we can, after the course completion of the antibiotic therapy, we can uh, stop the treatment as the patient will stabilize. So in the mild condition, we will give IVIG, and steroid will also be given. Steroid will be in the concentration of 2 mg per kg per day, and this broad spectrum antibiotic and aspirin and GI prophylaxis is given for the patient. And if the patient is in the moderate to severe condition, like then we will give methylprednisolone, that is 10 to 30 mg per kg per day for 1 to 3 days. Okay, then we will taper the steroid over 6 to 8 weeks, means the steroid will be given over a longer period. Okay, then IVIG will be given IVIG will be given in a dose of 2 gram per kg over 12 to 24 hours. And in the severe cases, moderate to severe cases, methylprednisolone is given in the higher amount and for the longer period. Okay. Then the refractory cases, those who are not improving after the IVIG and the methylprednisolone, then lack of clinical improvement or the lab improvement 40 to 72 hours of the initial therapy, or the child is worsening, like a patient is developing shock, or a patient is going into the renal failure, like this condition, then we will do second dose of IVIG will be given, and other immunosuppressant agent like anakinra and infliximab, tocilizumab, all these are the immunosuppressant drugs will be started for the patient. Understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what are the two conditions? How we will diagnose? What will be the diagnosis? How we will diagnose the this MIS-C? So there are various investigation, and based on these conditions, we will diagnose the MIS-C, like on the blood count and inflammatory markers are increasing, then we will diagnose, and it will be differentiated in, it will be categorized in two categories, like mild and moderate and severe. So in the mild, only the symptomatic treatment, like symptomatic treatment will be given, and symptomatic treatment, what we will say, like if the patient have restlessness, or a patient have breathing difficulty, saturation is dropping, then we will maintain the oxygen saturation by giving oxygen supplementation. And if the patient is not able to digest the food, or if the patient has a vomiting, then iv can iv fluid can be given. So these are the symptomatic management, and along with the symptomatic management, we will start antibiotic therapy, aspirin will be given, IVIG and J prophylaxis will be given, and methylprednisolone will be given in the mild cases. While in the moderate cases, the steroid concentration is high, and it will be given for a longer period, and it will be tapered over 6 to 8 weeks. And in the refractory cases, we will give, if the child is still deteriorating and child is not showing any improvement in the clinical marker, then we will give a second dose of IVIG and immunosuppressant agent like tocilizumab, anakinra. These drugs can be started. Okay. Next, what will be the nursing management? So the diagnosis for the nursing management will be like, patient can have ineffective airway clearance related to the respiratory muscle fatigue, which will be evidenced by the breath sounds. Okay, patient can have edema, because edema fluid, patient can go in shock, as well as patient can have edema. So patient will have difficulty in breathing. So what we will do, observe for the changes in the level of consciousness of the patient. Then we will check for the early signs of hypoxia, like any disorientation, irritability, restlessness, lethargy, or stupor will be considered. And then assess the client respiratory rate, depth, and pattern, including the use of accessory muscle. If the patient have retraction, then we will or adventitious breath sounds, assess the skin color, examine the lips, nail beds for the cyanosis, monitor arterial blood gas as indicated. So all this will be done for the if the patient have ineffective airway clearance, then we can tell the patient to cough, to expectorate the secretions. We can give sideline position to the patient, and if the patient is not maintaining the saturation, then oxygen supplementation can be started. So we will start from the basic oxygen therapy, like first oxygen through the nasal cannula can be given, then high breather oxygen mask, high concentration oxygen mask, then SAFNC, CPAP, and then if the patient is not maintaining saturation on these sports, then we can start the invasive ventilation. So if the child is ventilated, then what care will we provide? You will check that which size of ET tube is inserted. So size of ET tube is mentioned because the selection of the suction catheter is will be based on the size of the ET tube. Okay. Then uh, you can insert an oral airway so that the child will not block the tube or bite the into ET tube. And mechanical ventilation, start the mechanical ventilation on the prescribed setting. Then while suctioning, you will maintain the aseptic technique for the suctioning. And as the child will be agitated, so muscle paralyzing agent sedative like fentanyl and morphine can be given for the patient, and opioid analgesics can be given. Then examine the cuff volume by checking whether the client can talk or make sounds around the tube. If the if the pressure in the ET cuff is decreased, then there can be chances that the dislodgement of the ET tube can be there. So in this condition, the child will deteriorate at a very fast pace. So the ET tube should be checked regular interval, and you will respond to the alarms, like what all the alarms are coming in the ventilator, like high pressure alarm is there, then there can be chances that there's a kink in the ET tube. So all these things should be kept in mind while caring for the ventilated patient. So what all these things, like you can do 4 hourly positioning change, and suctioning as and when required if there are visible secretion, or uh, uh, child this oxygen saturation is decreasing. Then um, noting the ventilator setting, or if the ventilator is showing any alarm, then we will address that alarm. Understand? Then what other nursing diagnosis will be there? There will be decreased cardiac output related to the disease condition. Like why there will be the decrease? Well, there will be the decrease in the cardiac output because there is due to the inflammation, the capillary permeability will be increased. So lots of the fluid will be shifted into the interstitial fluids. Okay, so there the child will develop edema, but intravascular fluid will be decreased. So it ultimately it will lead to the decrease in the cardiac output. Okay. So for this, what we will do, we will do the various investigation like ECG, and we will check for the CFT check करेंगे. Then regularly monitoring of the patient, like level of consciousness, heart rate, CFT, blood pressure, and urine output will also be mentioned. And inspect the fluid balance and weight gain, whether the child is gaining weight due to the edema. And ECG and echocardiography. In the echocardiography, what we will see, there will be the dilatation of the ventricle, left ventricle, and so this echocardiography will also be done. Okay, so note any chest pain and identify location radiation where the pain is radiating, and closely monitor for the symptoms of heart failure or decreased cardiac output, like diminished quality of peripheral pulses, cold and clammy skin and extremities, and increased respiratory rate, presence of nocturnal dyspnea. So all these symptoms will give a clue regarding the heart failure. Okay, so we'll monitor the patient very closely and check for the condition. And if there are any sign like we will continuous monitoring will be done. So BP will be monitored. BP if there is the decrease in BP, then inotropes can be started, vasoactive drugs can be started. And always put the patient on cardiac monitor if the patient is not looking very much sick, but in that cases the patient will be placed on the cardiac monitor, and we will monitor for the dysrhythmias, especially arterial fibrillation. So there are high chances that the patient will deteriorate at a very patient will deteriorate very fast. So cardiac monitoring will be done for this patient, and this ECG monitoring, echo will be done. Okay. And administer medication as prescribed. So we will prescribe the medication, like if the inotropes are prescribed, we will infuse the medicines. Understand? Then next nursing diagnosis will be the impair. So in this condition, we will assume that if the patient is going into the shock, patient is very critical, so patient can be on the ventilator, and patient will have because in the immediate condition, means central catheter will be inserted, so all this medication will be given through the central venous catheter. Or for the prolonged infusion of the medication and IV fluids, PICC line can also be inserted. And if there is a decrease in the urine output, or patient is not able to pass the urine, then catheterization of the patient can also be done. Okay, so the patient will be very much, we will require very high skill for the management. Then next nursing diagnosis is the imbalanced nutrition status related to the disease condition, that will be evidenced by the decreased appetite and inability to digest the food. For in that cases, so all the patient will not appear at that much sick. मतलब हो सकता है कि patient is appearing patient is showing sign of fever, but now as for now the patient is stable, मतलब hemodynamically stable है, patient is able to move. So in those cases, as far as possible, give the patient orally. Okay, and if the patient is not accepting orally, patient is very much irritated, in that condition we can start IV fluids. Okay. So in the imbalanced nutrition status related to the patient, we will to the patient, and it will be recommended that any caregiver who is providing care at home should be accompanied to the child if the patient is stable. So if mother is there, then she can tell the patient tell the baby to eat or drink the fluids, and then emphasize the importance of oral hygiene. If the oral hygiene is maintained, then appetite will also increase and patient will take the good oral intake. Understand? And if the patient is not able to take orally, then what we will do, insert the IV catheter or have IV access, administer parenteral fluid as prescribed, and consider the need for IV is challenged with immediate infusion of fluids. But like, if the child is going into shock, or a patient is not able to take food orally, then we should start the IV fluids and maintain the IV fluids as prescribed, because this child will be very much critical in the critical condition. So either so whatever the prescribed rate is there for the fluid management, that only on that rate the infusion should be given. If it is less or if it is more, then it can affect the child adversely. And start TPN if it is required, then we can start the TPN. Okay, when the TPN will be started, if the condition of the patient is deteriorating and there is chances that the patient will not recover within 3 to 5 days, or then in those cases TPN can be started. Okay, then there can be a risk of infection related to the invasive lines and procedures. So observe for any, if the patient have any invasive line or is there, then we will check for arrhythmia, inflammation, and another sign of infection. Maintain the sterile technique while handling the infant or the child during the nursing care, like uh, while correcting the IV medication. So always clean the hub with the spirit, or if I correcting the infusion in the central venous catheter, always uh, clean with the spirit swab, and always cover the hub part with the cotton pad, and always maintain the sterile technique while handling. Then if the TPN is started, then the TPN should be prepared and the HEPA filter, or using the strict aseptic technique. So what is HEPA filter? High efficiency particulate filtration technique is known as HEPA filter. Okay, and this is this is this is the HEPA filter. So a special equipment is there, which is used for the patient for the medication preparation for the TPN, so that chances of infection can be decreased. And always clean the hub of the cannula with spirit before connecting solution. Okay, and change the peripheral IV line every 72 hourly, and change the PIC line after 14 days. So, and if the patient is on the urinary catheter, always maintain the close corrections, and this catheter should be placed below the level of the patient bladder, below the level of the bladder, and always try to maintain the aseptic technique while handling. And in the controlling of the infection, hand hygiene plays very important role. So tell the patient as well as the parents for regarding the hand hygiene. Okay, and the nursing officer or the other team member should be well aware about the hand hygiene, so that this infection can be prevented. Then nursing management related to the child as well as the parents will have anxiety related to the prognosis. What will be the prognosis, and what is the disease condition that is happening in the child. So what we will do, uh, for the anxiety level of the child, because child will not be able to understand so many things, so we will give the environment to alleviate the anxiety of the children. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am, visible.
Okay, then anxiety. So we will give a comfortable environment to the child. We will let, if the child is stable and if the child is hemodynamically stable, we will let the mother or the father or the parents along with the child, and we can give toys to the child to relieve the anxiety, and we can uh, we can take the help of play therapy while uh, while doing many procedure with the to the patient, like in the IV cannulation we can uh, uh, distract the child with the play therapy. So this will alleviate the anxiety of the child. And for the if the child is able to understand, then we will tell that what is happening to the child, which all diagnosis, why all these diagnostic investigations are to be done. So we will tell. And for the parents, we will tell that it is self-limiting. This is the self-limiting disease. It will resolve over a period of 5 to 10 days. But in severe cases, it can happen. In the severe cases, this type of condition can happen. And there are chances that it will resolve over a period of time. And we will tell the parents about the disease condition, why this is happening, what are the inflammation, and why all these investigations are to be done, so that the patient will be very much cooperative with you while treating the children. Understand? Understand?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am.
So in the discharge, and the follow-up. So the discharge, when we will discharge the patient, if the patient is able to if the patient is dynamically stable है, patient is off the inotropes, patient is maintaining saturation of oxygen, then patient is able to take food orally in that and patient is there is no episode of fever in the last 3 days, then the patient can be discharged from the hospital. So but the child should be asked to for the follow up, like after 3 days and after 7 days, and repeat investigation like inflammatory markers will be done, ECG and echocardiography will be done. Okay, why echocardiography will be done? Because it will affect the it will show that whether there is any dilatation in the arteries, or is there, or dilatation in the arteries, or in the, is there any deviation in the ventricles. So echocardiography will be done, and various investigation like D-dimer test, inflammatory markers will be done for the patient at the time of follow up. And this should be done over a period of up to 1 year. So in the beginning, after 1 to 2 weeks, then after 4 to 6 weeks, then the next follow-up will be in 2 to 6 months, and after 1 year. So these child should be the follow-up should be done up to 1 year. Understand? So in the summary, we have discussed about what is MIS-C. So it is the complication after the infection of SARS-CoV-19. Okay, so this is the hyperinflammation, and various organs can be affected like heart, liver, kidneys, lungs, and most importantly that heart is affected in the child's. Okay, and if the child if any patient is admitted, then there should be high suspicion that the child can have this MIS-C. Okay, so what is the usual treatment? We used to give IVIG, this and aspirin, IVIG, and then steroids are to be given, and it will resolve over a period of time. Outcome is good. Only 1 in 1 lakh. Okay, two in 1 lakh got the infection. Okay, and it is resolved over a period of time, and only minute cases the child will go into the shock or the other complication. Otherwise it will resolve over a period of time. Okay, so outcome is good for the patients. So these are the references. I have taken the guidelines from the CDC, WHO, and other research articles. So if you have any query, then you can ask me. If you have any query, then you can ask me.
Students can write their query in the chat box also, and participants, if you have any query, then you can directly ask Suman ma'am.
So otherwise, I will ask the question. So what will be the inflammatory markers that need to be tested for the child? So there are different investigation. Why there are the tires for the investigation, first tire and second tire? Because it is the unnecessary wastage. Means to do all the investigation for all the child will be the wastage of the resources. So first basic investigation will be there, and if there is any abnormality in the if there is any abnormality found in the tier 1 investigation, like CRP is raised more than 5 mg per deciliter, and erythrocyte sedimentation rate is more than 50, then we will, and child is deteriorating, then a second level of the investigation is required. Otherwise, we will do first tier 1, and if the condition is worsening, then we'll go for the tier 2. And what are the different investigation in the tier 2? Like uh, cytokines, IL-6, IL-10, then ferritin, prothrombin time, activated prothrombin time, and ECG, echocardiography. All these investigation will be done for the patient, and procalcitonin. Okay, so a second tier investigation will be done for those patients. Understand?
Ma'am, there is one question from participant side. Ma'am, please
Yes.
describe relationship in MIS-C with SARS-CoV-19.
So after the infection of MIS-C, it is the delayed response in the children. Then after 9 to 10 days, 9 to 14 days of that, the child can develop the symptom of MIS-C. That this SARS-CoV-19 infection can overstimulate the immune system of the child, and it can lead to hyperinflammatory response in the children. So after 9 to 14 days, the child can have a symptoms of MIS-C. Okay. So
Okay.
there's a direct relation. Like if the child is affected with the SARS-CoV-19, after 9 to 14 days, the child can develop MIS-C. So in not in all the cases the child will develop MIS-C, but 2 in lakhs but will develop MIS-C. Okay. Some of the cases can develop MIS-C. So in the cases like if there is an infection in the home, like if parents are infected with the SARS-CoV-19, then maybe child got the infected but the child didn't show the symptoms. Okay, then after 9 to 10 days the child will develop symptoms of MIS-C.
Okay, thanks, ma'am. I hope the query is clear to the participant. Any other query from the participant side? Okay, so we have shared the feedback form in the chat box for all the participants. So you all are requested to fill the feedback form and submit it to us. Thanks, Suman ma'am, for this wonderful session and relating the session to the clinical experience too. Thank you very much, ma'am. Now I would like to request Mr. Paul, Associate Professor, Ved Nursing College and Ved Nursing Training Institute, to play the recording session of Brigadier J.R. Sethi, CEO, Prem Institute of Medical Sciences. Sir,
Suman ma'am, please close the slide, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Just a minute.
Also, there is no sound in the video. Please check it. all, sir. Sir, there is no sound in the video. Okay, sir. I think there is some technical error. The sound is not audible. So now I would like to invite Ms. Kalpana, Assistant Professor, Ved Nursing College, to propose a vote of thanks to all. Kalpana, ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Really thank you for giving an opportunity. A very good afternoon to all the respected guests present in this online webinar on the multi-organ inflammatory syndrome in children. First of all, I would like to thank you, respected Ms. Nidhi ma'am, Vice Principal of VNC and facilitator of this webinar, who gave me an opportunity to speak on this auspicious occasion, and it's a matter of honor for me. Thanksgiving is the greatest form of gratitude, and we all know that gratitude makes the sense of our past, bring the peace for today, and create a vision for tomorrow. On the behalf of the entire Frame Institution of the Medical Science, I would like to thank Honorable Chairman Chief Patra, Dr. Pankaj Mutneja ji, for his esteemed presence to grace this occasion. I would like to thank respected Vice Chairman, Dr. Rachna Mutneja ji, for their kind presence to grace the occasion. I would like to thank Dr. Abhinav sir for their great presence and enlighten the webinar. I would like to thank our chief guest, Ms. Suman ma'am, BSc and MSc Nursing in the Pediatric Nursing Faculty, College of Nursing, AIMS, New Delhi, for their kind presence and to deliver such an inspirational speech and which enhance our professional skills. Thank you so much, ma'am. I would like to thank our CEO, sir, patron of this webinar, Brigadier J.R. Sethi, sir, for motivating all of us by his inspirational words. I would also like to thank our Director Principal, ma'am, Professor Inderpreet Kaur, ma'am, for their esteemed presence, their kind guidance, which enhance our professional skills in every stage and the phase of dedication and hard work. Thank you so much, ma'am. I would like to thank our Vice Principal and Facilitator of this webinar, Ms. Nidhi Sharma, ma'am, who gave me an opportunity to speak on this webinar, and she always motivating us and enhancing our professional skills by organizing this event. Thank you so much, ma'am. I would like to thank all the faculty members and the staff member of this PIMS Institute. I would also like to thank the IT department and the technical sector, Mr. Sung, for the maintaining the continuous connectivity for avoid any external interruption. I would like to thank Mr. Paul, Associate Professor in the Ved Nursing College, who always giving a coordination in this webinar to help us without giving any avoidance in the external interruption in this webinar. At last, I would like to thank our faculty member and the dear lovely participants from the depth of my heart. It has always been our pleasure to have you with all of us. I appreciate the hard work of all the nurses and their sacrifices to be at work when so many others are at home, to run towards the danger instead of running away, and to continue for the need of others before our own needs. Thank you all to all the nurses for being our nation and guiding light in the face of this adversity. We all appreciate from the bottom of our heart that you all are risking your health to make our communities safe. God will bless you, caring for us. Stay safe, and we all know that you with all us thinking of you. Thank you.
Thank you all. I declare the session closed. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.